Welcome to AC 24/7. I'm Aaron Dean. The Supreme Court has rejected a controversial election law theory backed by supporters of former President Donald Trump. The issue stems from North Carolina's 2022 congressional map. The state Supreme Court invalidated the map and replaced it with court-drawn maps that favored Democrats. The North Carolina Republicans appealed the decision to the U.S. Supreme Court, arguing that the state's high court exceeded its authority. They were asking the justices to adopt a long-dormant legal theory that state entities have a limited role in reviewing election rules established by state legislatures when it comes to federal elections. In his opinion, Chief Justice John Roberts said that state courts have the authority to apply state constitutional restraints, but also said that federal courts can supervise in certain circumstances. Vice President Kamala Harris says that we're all in this together while visiting the Stonewall Inn in New York City. The Vice President's surprise visit to the National Monument comes just days ahead of the 54th anniversary of the police raid and the rebellion that sparked on June 28, 1969. It also comes amid a flurry of bills that affect transgender people and chip away at LGBTQ+ rights.
We are all in this together.
Okay.
We are fighting for the ideals of our country, which means that we are true patriots because we love our country, we believe in its promise of equality and freedom, and we fight with pride, understanding what's at stake. I mean, I'm looking at where we are in our country, but we're also clear-eyed about this moment.
Former President Barack Obama established the Stonewall National Monument in 2016. It's the first national monument dedicated to LGBTQ+ rights. 3 San Antonio officers face murder charges after they fatally shot a woman. 46-year-old Melissa Ann Perez was killed early Friday after police were called to her apartment for a disturbance. The Advocate Channel's Natasha Chen reports on how the shooting unfolded. We do want to warn you that some of the video that you'll see is disturbing.
We're gonna miss her terribly. We're heartbroken.
The children of 46-year-old Melissa Ann Perez are asking for prayers after their mother was shot by San Antonio police officers shortly after midnight on Friday. The youngest of her children, just 9 years old.
There's no adequate explanation for how that happened. The children will be fine for a little while and then they'll burst into tears.
Within 24 hours, 3 officers were charged with murder and taken into custody.
They're no longer on the job in terms of patrolling the streets of San Antonio.
CNN has been unable to reach the officers who were released on a $100,000 bond for comment. An affidavit says when the officers responded to a disturbance at her apartment complex, Perez told them she had cut the wires to the fire alarm because the FBI was listening to her.
Officers tried to speak with her through an open window after they determined that the damage to the fire alarm was a felony criminal mischief.
Police have not yet released unedited body camera footage, but what they have released shows when an officer removed a window screen on the first floor, she threw an object hitting the officer in the arm.
You're gonna get shot!
Shoot me!
The officers backed away and waited for others, including supervisors, to arrive. That's when the 3 officers in question showed up.
You ain't got no warrant!
Let's go.
One of them saw Perez swing a hammer. The affidavit says the officer believed she might throw it at them, so he fired and she stepped back. But then
Ms. Perez advanced toward the window again while still holding the hammer, and all 3 officers opened fire.
the police chief said it appeared Perez was having a mental health crisis.
The shooting officer's actions were not consistent with SAPD's policy and training, and they placed themselves in a situation where they used deadly force, which was not reasonable.
And there was no imminent threat, according to the affidavit.
Officials in Florida have declined to file murder charges against a woman accused of shooting and killing her neighbor through a closed door. They claim insufficient evidence. Instead, Susan Lawrence will be charged with manslaughter with a firearm and assault and could face up to 30 years in prison if convicted. Lawrence, a white woman from Marion County, Florida, is accused of killing Ajika A.J. Owens after Owens repeatedly knocked on her door earlier this month. Investigators have said that Lawrence got mad after several neighborhood children, including Owens' children, were playing near her home. The Owens family told media outlets that Lawrence has harassed Owens and her children, who are black, and called them racial slurs. One of Owens' sons witnessed the shooting. Deliberations continue for a second day in the trial of the former school resource officer who stayed outside during the 2018 mass shooting at a Parkland, Florida high school. The Advocate Channel's Mike Valerio has more and joins us now.
He was the first officer at the scene of the 2018 Parkland High School massacre. Now, 5 years later, in a Florida courtroom, the defense presents former school resource officer Scott Peterson as
a 32-year veteran, honorable, decorated, award-winning.
Peterson is on trial for not confronting the Parkland gunman. He faces charges of child neglect, culpable negligence, and perjury. Prosecutors and parents arguing Peterson should be found criminally responsible.
He heard the gunshots coming out of that building, and then his reaction was not to go in the building, not to look in the building, but to go and retreat and hide behind a concrete pillar for 48 minutes.
The defense arguing gunfire echoed off buildings and Peterson couldn't tell where the shots were coming from. The state countered in closing arguments that Peterson critically erred in his duties as an officer.
When the defendant failed to force an outcome, he told you what his priority of life was.
The trial underscores expectations of what officers should do during a mass shooting. Parkland parents hope this case sets a precedent for required action.
I hope he is haunted by his inaction.
Peterson's lawyer says the former deputy did, quote, everything he could that day.
The only verdict that speaks justice in this case, ladies and gentlemen, is not guilty on every single count, because he truly is innocent.
I'm Mike Valerio reporting.
Well, switching gears, good news. If you're expecting, you'll no longer face the unexpected at work. The Pregnant Workers Fairness Act is currently in effect. PWFA for short, this law will give accommodations to workers affected by pregnancy, childbirth, or other related health issues. It's different than the laws in place that prohibit the firing and discrimination of pregnant workers. Instead, the new law focuses on making work easier for pregnant employees with known limitations. Some of the reasonable accommodations include longer break times, closer parking, flexible hours, and exemption from labor-driven jobs. Employers covered by PWFA include private and public sectors with at least 15 employees, as well as Congress, federal, and employment agencies and labor groups. So check this out. There's plant-based meat, as we know, and there's now lab-grown chicken. The USDA approved the production and sale of cultivated meat in the United States. Supporters say that it's a step forward in creating cruelty-free food and improving the environment, but not everyone is behind this new option. The Advocate Channel's Jen Sullivan has a closer look at the process, the concerns, and how soon it could be available.
Meat without the slaughter. Lab-made animal protein from the companies Good Meat and Upside Foods is now clear for production and sale in the U.S.
We're just trying to make the same product people have loved their entire lives a different way.
But just because it looks the same, tastes the same, and is just as safe, would you eat chicken cultivated in a lab? Well, you won't see lab meat at your local store anytime soon. Here's what you should know now. 1. How is it made? The meat is made from animal cells and is grown in massive bioreactors.
We can produce a lot of muscle tissue directly from a very small amount of cells, and then we feed it to other people.
2. What are the benefits? Advocates of lab meat say it's a more environmentally friendly way to produce meat. Animal agriculture is responsible for a significant amount of greenhouse gas emissions, which contributes to climate change. 3. Is it safe? Both the FDA and USDA have said some lab meats are safe for human consumption. But experts say animal cells are prone to contamination and say it faces long-term production challenges.
And our answer to that, based just on well-known principles of biotechnology of fermentation processes, it doesn't look very good.
4. What about the cost? The exact pricing is still unclear. And finally, when can you buy it? No exact date has been announced, but Good Meat said production started immediately after USDA approval. For Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
And thank you for watching AC 24/7. For more, go to theadvocatechannel.com and subscribe on the Advocate Channel YouTube page. For the Advocate Channel, I'm Aaron Dean.